Settle in. This is Unintended Consequences, Episode 2. Monday, a fresh case to chew on as the week begins. In the summer of 1935, staff at the Meringa Sugar Experiment Station near Gordonvale in northern Queensland opened crates containing 102 live cane toads shipped from Hawaii. The animals were placed in the surrounding sugarcane fields with the expectation that they would hunt at night and clear out the beetles chewing through the crop roots. Within a few years, the toads had moved well beyond those fields. By the time their numbers reached into the millions, the original agricultural problem had been replaced by something far larger and harder to contain. Queensland's sugarcane industry in the early 1930s faced pressure from several beetle species. The grayback cane beetle stood out as particularly destructive. Its larvae attacked the roots, while the adults fed on the leaves. Yields dropped across thousands of hectares as a result. Chemical controls remained rudimentary and expensive at that time. Manual collection of the beetles could not keep pace with the damage. Researchers looked to Hawaii for answers. Cane toads had been introduced there in 1932. They seemed to provide a low-cost, self-replicating way to handle similar pests in sugar and pineapple fields. Reginald Montgomery, an entomologist with the Bureau of Sugar Experiment Stations, advocated for bringing the toads to Australia. He believed they would forage on the ground at night when the beetles were most vulnerable. Ecology as a science was still developing in that era. Attention stayed on immediate crop protection needs. Importing a predator from another tropical region appeared rational and forward-thinking. Farmers and station managers backed the plan. It offered a way to cut down on labor-intensive methods. The approach also matched the pattern of biological control efforts used elsewhere in the world. The first 102 toads arrived in June 1935. They were held at the Meringa Station for observation and limited breeding. Releases into nearby fields came next. Early reports noted that the toads adapted quickly to the local climate. They showed clear signs of establishing populations. More shipments arrived in the late 1930s. Releases expanded to districts around Cairns and further south. Proponents saw the survival and reproduction as proof the method worked. The Bureau maintained support into the early 1940s. Some scientists and naturalists outside the industry raised concerns about effects on native wildlife. Those concerns drew little notice while the focus remained on the crop. By the end of the decade, toads appeared beyond the original sites. This spread was viewed mainly as successful establishment. The toads did not turn out to be effective at controlling the cane beetles. Adult beetles often fed higher on the plants or flew to new fields. The toads stayed on the ground and chose easier prey instead. This mismatch in behavior meant the beetles often escaped predation. The toads focused on insects and amphibians that were more accessible. They consumed a wide range of native insects and small frogs. Other ground-dwelling creatures also became part of their diet. Local food webs changed in ways that took time to notice. The breeding rate exceeded all expectations. Females could produce clutches of up to 30,000 eggs in the wet season. Populations grew exponentially after leaving the plantations. The bufoxin toxin from glands on their backs and necks caused the greatest harm. Many Australian predators had never encountered this toxin before. Northern quills, goannas, and various snakes tried to eat the toads. They experienced rapid heart failure as a result. Predators had no evolutionary history with this particular toxin. Sharp declines followed in these predator populations. The absence of these animals changed the balance in the local environment. In some areas, quail numbers dropped by more than 80% within a few years. The loss of these predators allowed insect and small mammal populations to fluctuate in unexpected ways. Some insect groups increased while others decreased depending on the new dynamics. toads competed with native frogs for breeding sites and food resources. This added pressure to amphibian communities dealing with other habitat issues. Rural residents started seeing large numbers of toads near homes and water tanks. Livestock areas also saw frequent encounters. Informal culling efforts began, but made little difference to the growing numbers. The scale of the toad population made such efforts ineffective over large areas. By the 1970s, the toads had reached the Northern Territory. Westward expansion sometimes covered tens of kilometers in a single year during wet seasons. Favorable conditions during the rains supported this fast movement. Predator and prey relationships shifted across wide regions as a result. Certain crows and kites developed a behavior of flipping toads to avoid the toxin. They ate only the safe parts of the animals. This adaptation helped some birds survive in the changed environment. By most accounts, the population now exceeds 200 million individuals. The range covers more than 1 million square kilometers in northern Australia. By the 1950s and 1960s, the full extent of the spread became evident. Early efforts like collection drives and trapping failed to slow the toad's advance. The Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization began exploring new methods. Pheromone-based traps were one option under consideration. Viruses and genetic techniques aimed at limiting breeding also received attention. Some methods showed promise in limited trials. Scaling these solutions to the large occupied areas raised technical and regulatory challenges. The invasion front keeps moving westward. Toads have now been recorded in parts of the Kimberley region. They approach the edge of more arid zones in Western Australia. A few native species show signs of adaptation over time. Some snake populations have developed longer jaws. This allows them to eat smaller toads and reduce toxin exposure. Management today aims to slow further spread. Community monitoring programs play a key role in this effort. Targeted removal happens in areas of high conservation value. Full eradication is not the current goal. The toads have become a permanent part of the northern Australian landscape. Research continues on their ecological role and options for long-term containment. Efforts to manage biological systems often reveal the need to assess whether an introduced organism will stick to its intended role. Many such organisms prove to be generalists capable of thriving under a variety of conditions. They may also reproduce at rates that allow rapid expansion beyond the original area. Thorough testing for these generalist traits and high reproductive capacity before any release can reduce the chance of persistent problems. Living systems also feature numerous indirect connections between different species and resources. Introducing or removing one element can therefore alter predator-prey balances in unexpected directions. Competition for food and breeding sites may shift as well. These adjustments frequently take many years or decades to become fully apparent. Anyone planning interventions in agriculture, conservation, or technology benefits from mapping out possible escape routes and long-term adaptability in advance. This kind of careful preparation requires time and resources at the start, yet it can prevent far more extensive issues from developing later on. Consider current proposals for gene drives or new biological controls in other regions. These approaches aim to address pests or disease vectors in agriculture and public health. What tests for behavioral flexibility and reproductive success outside the target scope would you want to see completed before any move from trials to widespread release? That wraps today's case. The lessons travel further when you share them. Send this episode to someone who'd find it useful. We'll see you tomorrow. This podcast is curated by Patrick, but generated using AI voice synthesis of my voice. The primary reason to do this is I unfortunately don't have the time to be consistent with generating all the content and wanted to focus on creating consistent and regular episodes for all the themes that I enjoy, and I hope others do as well.